I was standing at the kitchen sink, the warm water running over my hands, scraping the last stubborn bits of salad dressing into a small plastic container. The faint smell of vinaigrette lingered in the air, sharp and tangy. My mind wasn't on anything in particular, just the rhythm of cleaning up, the soft clink of dishes, the hum of the refrigerator in the background. It was a mundane moment, one of those fleeting pauses in a busy day. That's when Mom's voice broke through the quiet. She sounded calm, almost too calm, like she was reading off the day's weather report or commenting on something as ordinary as the price of eggs. "We're out of oat milk again," she said, her tone steady and matter-of-fact. "Can you pick some up on your way home from work?" I didn't look up from the container. I snapped the lid shut with a soft click and let out a small sigh. "Is the oat milk for you, or is it for Teresa and her hormones?" I asked, half joking, half exasperated. Mom didn't laugh. She never did when it came to Teresa. Mom's face stayed serious as she folded the grocery list with deliberate care, as if it were a sacred document, like a church program or a letter meant to be kept forever. "It's for her tea," she said, her voice clipped. "She needs to relax before her flight." I froze, my hands still wet from the sink, the sponge dripping onto the counter. "What flight to West Bay?" I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. Mom answered as if it were the most obvious thing in the world, like I should have known. "Didn't she tell you?" There was a brief pause, the kind that hangs heavy with unspoken words. Then she continued, "It's for her women's retreat in Nicaragua. The cold air is supposed to help with stress and hormone levels or something." The water kept running, a steady stream that filled the silence. My hands were still wet, the dish soap slick between my fingers. I turned slowly to face her, the weight of her words settling in. "She's going to Nicaragua?" I said, more to myself than to her. Mom blinked, her expression puzzled, as if my surprise was the strange part. "Just for a few days," she said. "It's a spa resort. Everything is natural and healthy. She's been very stressed lately, Jessica." I stared at her, the word stressed echoing in my mind like a bell that wouldn't stop ringing. Stressed. That's what she called it. Not lazy. Not unemployed for over 1.5 years. Not the reason I'd been carrying the weight of the mortgage, the groceries, the phone bills, the electricity, and now, apparently, the oat milk too, also Teresa could relax in Nicaragua. My chest tightened, a familiar ache that had been building for months, maybe years. "How is she paying for it?" I asked, my voice low, controlled. Mom answered quickly, too quickly. "She won it," she said. "A raffle or something online." I raised an eyebrow, repeating her words slowly, letting them hang in the air. "She won a retreat to Nicaragua in a raffle?" Mom nodded, her eyes avoiding mine. "Yes," she said, then, after a short silence, added, "Don't sound so doubtful, Jessica. She deserves something nice." I dried my hands on the dish towel, the fabric catching on my ring for a moment, tugging at my skin. I looked at her, my voice steady but sharp. "When I got promoted to team lead last year, do you remember what you said?" Mom's face shifted, her lips tightening. "You said, 'Congratulations,' and then asked if I could help with the water bill. That was all." Her eyes flickered with something, guilt, maybe, or discomfort. "That's not fair," she said softly. "No," I replied, my voice quieter now but heavy with truth. "It isn't." Just then, the sound of keys gingled in the hallway, sharp and deliberate, like the opening notes of a performance. Teresa swept into the kitchen like it was her own personal stage, her smile wide and radiant, full of an energy that seemed to light up the room. She was wearing a big winter coat, the kind made for snowy mountains, not our mild suburban winters. It was the coat I'd given her last Christmas, the one she'd called boring at the time. Now, she wore it like a fashion statement, her confidence filling the space. The realization hit me like a punch. She was actually going to Nicaragua. She opened the fridge with a flourish, as if she owned the place, and peered inside. "Where's the oat milk?" she asked, her voice light, almost playful. I didn't answer. Mom handed her the folded grocery list, her movements quick and practiced. "Jessica's picking some up," she said. Teresa turned, her smile brightening as she kissed Mom on the cheek. "Thanks, sis," she said, not even glancing at me. Then she breezed out the door, her steps light and carefree, as if the world bent to her whims. I stood there, watching the door close behind her. The silence that followed was heavier than before, like a storm cloud settling over the kitchen. It pressed against my chest, making it hard to breathe. "I thought she didn't have any money," I said finally, breaking the silence. Mom's response was immediate, defensive. "She needed the trip," she said. "You don't understand how hard it's been for her, staying home all day." I didn't argue. The sink was still running, the water a steady hum in the background. I didn't turn it off. Deep down, I knew something wasn't right, not just the trip, not just the oat milk, but something bigger, something that had been wrong for a long time. I just wasn't ready to face it. Not yet. But that was about to change. The next day, I sat at my desk, my laptop open, and typed Nicaragua Retreat Raffle into the search bar. I didn't expect to find anything, and I didn't. No raffles, no contests, no evidence of a free trip to a luxury spa resort. I wasn't shocked. Something in my gut had told me it was a lie, a story spun to justify something unjustifiable. That evening, during dinner, I brought it up again, keeping my tone casual. Mom was warming up a frozen meal, arranging it on the plate to look homemade, as she always did when she wanted to pretend everything was fine. "So, what kind of raffle did Teresa win?" I asked, taking a bite of the dry meatloaf. Mom blinked, her eyes darting to the microwave as if it held the answer. "Just a travel sweepstakes," she said vaguely. "You know how Teresa is with those online contests. She's always entering something." I chewed slowly, the meatloaf tasteless in my mouth. "That's funny," I said. "She usually brags about things like that." Mom's gaze flicked to me, quick and sharp. "She probably didn't want to upset you," she said. "You've been working so hard lately." That was new, Mom worrying about how I felt. "I'm not upset," I said, and I meant it. I wasn't upset. I was tired of being the one who kept everything together, the one who paid for everything, the one who fixed everything, like a machine no one notices until it breaks. The next morning, I was in a work meeting, my notebook open. My pen scribbling absent-mindedly when my phone buzzed. It was a number I didn't recognize, and I let it ring 4 times before answering. Something inside me whispered that I shouldn't wait. "This is Judy from Gold Line Credit," a woman's voice said, polite but serious. "We're calling to check on some recent activity on your account." I stepped out of the meeting room, my heart pounding. "What kind of activity?" I asked, my voice steady despite the growing dread. "There have been several large purchases made in West Bay, Nicaragua," she said. "Luxury hotel stays, spa treatments, shopping." She paused, then added, "We're just checking to confirm that you're traveling." I closed my eyes, the world tilting slightly. "No," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I'm not." There was a pause on her end. "Would you like to freeze the card?" she asked. "Yes," I said immediately. The email she sent later detailed the damage, $38,000 in just 4 days. Charges for a 5-star hotel, a private tour, a hot spring spa, multiple restaurants, and something called a glacier helicopter trip. I printed the email at home and left the pages on the kitchen table, right where Mom always read her newspaper. I didn't say a word. That evening, the house felt unnaturally quiet, like it was holding its breath. Mom was folding laundry with exaggerated care, smoothing each shirt as if perfection could erase the tension. Dad, who rarely spoke unless the game was on, cleared his throat. "She didn't mean anything by it," he said, his voice low. I didn't respond. "The card was just sitting there," Mom added, her tone defensive. "You always leave it out." "It's not like she stole it." I picked up one of the printed pages and held it up, my hand steady. $38,000 in 4 days, I said, my voice calm but unyielding. "She thought it was going to expire," Mom said quickly, as if that explained everything. "She didn't want it to go to waste." I stared at her, incredulous. "She said that." Mom hesitated, then nodded. "More or less." I didn't say anything else. I gathered the pages and went upstairs, my footsteps heavy on the creaking stairs. Later, I checked my voicemail. It was Teresa, her voice bright and carefree. "Hey sis," she said. "Looks like the card stopped working. Can you fix that? I still need to book the ice cave tour. Love you." She hung up without waiting for a response, as if my answer was a given. The next morning, Mom was in the living room, pouring her third cup of coffee into a mug that read "Grateful Heart" in looping cursive. "She says her card isn't working," she said, holding the phone to her ear, her eyes flicking to me. I didn't reply immediately. I just stood there, watching her, waiting for someone in this house to finally acknowledge what I'd known for years. "No, the card isn't working," I said finally, my voice even. Mom blinked. "You turned it off?" "I reported it stolen," I answered, calm but firm. Dad spoke from his chair, his voice hesitant. "That seems a little extreme." "She took it without asking," I replied. "That's called stealing, last I checked." Mom's voice tightened, her hands gripping the mug. "You always go too far." Teresa called again, and I saw her name flash on my phone. I didn't pick up. Her voicemail was sharp, indignant. "Seriously, Cass, you canceled the card? I already booked stuff." "That's really immature. I was going to get you something." That last part made me laugh, a dry, humorless sound. Like a cheap trinket from a tourist shop could make up $4.38. Later that day, Mom knocked on my bedroom door, something she hadn't done in years. "We need to talk," she said, her voice softer than usual. I closed my laptop and nodded. She walked in and sat on the edge of my bed, her posture stiff, like she was trying to hold on to some semblance of authority. "She's stuck now," she said. "She's in a 7-star hotel with no money. She can't even get food." I raised an eyebrow. "She ordered truffle risotto last night," I said, pointing to the printed bill. "It's on the statement." Mom's face hardened. "She's your sister," she said, as if that single word carried the weight of every obligation I'd ever felt. I sat up straighter, my voice steady. "Do you remember when I was in college?" I asked. "When I got a stomach ulcer from working 4 jobs at once. I called you crying, said I needed help with a $3,000 hospital bill." Mom shifted, her eyes uneasy. "You're bringing that up now," she said. "You told me Teresa needed braces more." Mom pressed her hands together, her knuckles white. "That was a different time," she said. I shook my head. "It's always a different time." Mom did something unexpected then. She reached across and placed her hand on mine, her touch hesitant but warm. "I know we didn't always treat you fairly," she said, her voice quieter now, almost fragile. "But right now, she really needs you." I didn't pull my hand away, but I didn't agree either. I thought about Teresa's voicemail, the casual way she'd said, "Fix it," like I was her assistant, not her sister. In that moment, I realized something profound. Teresa didn't think she'd done anything wrong. And maybe, just maybe, Mom didn't either. I thought back to my 17th birthday, when they gave Teresa a car and me a savings bond, smiling as if the gifts were equal. I remembered the time Teresa borrowed my rent money for a business venture, only to spend it on concert tickets. I thought about the house, the one I'd kept standing for years, the deed signed over to me when Dad couldn't pay the back taxes. I'd paid every bill, every month, quietly, without fanfare. Then I smiled, a small, deliberate smile. "Okay," I said. Mom looked up, surprised, then relieved. "You'll help." I stood and walked to my dresser, pulling open the top drawer. I reached to the back and took out a card, black, sleek, untouched. "This one's still active," I said, handing it to her. "Book whatever she needs." Mom took it like it was a lifeline, her fingers trembling slightly. She left the room, clutching the card like it could fix everything. I watched her go, then picked up my phone and called someone I hadn't spoken to in a while. "Hi, Grandma," I said. "Are you still looking for help in the cafe kitchen?" The next few days were quiet, but not the peaceful kind. Teresa's voicemail slowed, her tone shifting from cheerful to annoyed, then to something that mimicked remorse without ever saying the word sorry. Mom started acting softer, offering me coffee, asking about my day but not waiting for the answer. I played along, nodding, smiling, handing over the black card when asked. It wasn't the gold card, that one was frozen, gone. This was a different card, one Teresa had opened years ago and left in a drawer. I'd activated it with a strict spending limit and given it to them. I didn't tell them I was moving. Not yet. I packed 4 boxes: clothes, books, important papers, the things that truly mattered. Everything else could be replaced or left behind. I booked a moving company for the following Tuesday and called a realtor named Judy, someone I'd met years ago at a business event. She remembered me, to my surprise, and asked about the house. "I'm ready to let it go," I told her. I didn't share the full story, just that the deed was in my name and I was the sole owner. She said she had a buyer waiting for a house on our street. We scheduled a walkthrough. In the garage, I found the tax transfer papers Dad had signed years ago, still in a folder labeled temporary. Upstairs, I stopped at a framed photo from Christmas 8 years ago. I was barely in it, cropped at the edge, just a sliver of my shoulder visible. It used to hurt. Now it made sense. I'd never really been in the picture, just close enough to be useful. On Saturday afternoon, I sat on the porch swing, waiting. The sky was half cloudy, half blue, the air cool and crisp. I heard the sound of suitcase wheels rolling over the walkway, a grating, uneven sound. Teresa got out of the car first, her smile wide, like we were sisters who shared everything. "You came to pick us up?" she asked, her voice bright. I didn't answer. Mom walked up the steps, pulling her keys from her purse. She tried to unlock the front door. It didn't work. She tried again, her movements more frantic. Then she looked at me confused. "Did you change the door code?" "No," I said. "I changed the lock." Teresa blinked, her smile faltering. "Why?" "Because you don't live here anymore," I said calmly. She gave a dry, nervous laugh. "Jessica, come on." I stood and walked toward her, handing her a large manila envelope. Inside were the signed papers from the house sale, proof of the wire transfer, and the closing documents. "I sold it," I said. Teresa's face crumpled. "Sold what?" "The house." Her voice rose, sharp and panicked. "You can't do that. That's illegal. This is Dad's house." Dad opened the envelope, his hands shaking. He didn't finish reading the first page before his face went pale. He sat on the curb, his breath uneven. "Jessica," I said, "you signed the deed over to me 6 years ago. Remember? When the IRS showed up." He opened his mouth, then closed it, silent. I handed Teresa another envelope. Inside was a set of house keys, a handwritten note from Grandma, and an address. The note read, "Room upstairs. Work starts at 6. Apron on by 4:37. Mom stared at the paper, her voice trembling. "You sent our stuff to your grandmother's house?" "No," I said. "I sent your things to your mother's house. She agreed to take you in, but only if you help out." Teresa scoffed, her defiance flaring. "You really think she can tell me what to do?" "She's been telling you what to do since before you were born," I said. Dad spoke, his voice quiet. "What about the card?" "The black one." I turned to him. "That one wasn't mine," I said. Teresa froze. "What?" "That card was yours." "No," I said, looking her in the eye. "It was yours. You opened it 3 years ago, right after you quit that copywriting job. You left it in a drawer." Her face paled, her hands clutching the envelope. "You're lying," she said, but her voice wavered. I didn't respond. The moving truck pulled into the driveway, and the new owners stepped out, a couple with a baby and a small dog, their faces bright with excitement. I turned to my family. "You have 4 days to move out. Grandma's guest rooms are ready." Mom opened her mouth, but no words came. I didn't wait for what came next. I walked to my car, started the engine, and drove away, no speech, no goodbye. The house was gone. And so was I. After that, everything went quiet. No calls, no voicemails, no late-night knocks at the door. Just peace. I moved into a small apartment across town, 3 rooms, soft lighting, no shared walls. It wasn't luxurious, but it was mine. The kind of quiet I hadn't realized I'd been missing wrapped around me like a warm blanket. Work felt lighter. I stopped checking my bank account obsessively. I didn't flinch when my phone rang. I even bought flowers for my kitchen table, not for anyone else, just because I liked how they brightened the room. One morning, Grandma called. She doesn't waste time with pleasantries. "They're adjusting," she said. "Your mom's washing dishes slower than I like, but she's doing it. Your dad learned how to fold napkins badly. And your sister? She finally figured out how to clock in on time. I didn't say anything, just listened. Grandma sighed. They're not perfect, but they're changing. Some things you only learn through hard work. The next week, I stopped by Grandma's cafe. I didn't go to talk, just to see. The back door was open, and the smells of garlic, olive oil, and baking bread drifted out, warm and familiar. Inside, I saw them through the kitchen window. Teresa was wiping down the counter, her hair tied back, her sleeves rolled up, a faint sheen of sweat on her forehead. Dad was folding paper menus into uneven piles, his movements careful but clumsy. Mom had her hands in soapy water, her lips pressed into a tight line, her focus intense. None of them looked up. No one noticed me standing there. I didn't go inside. I just watched, not angry, not sad, not even pitying them. I felt clear, like the fog that had clouded my life for years had finally lifted. They looked like people learning to carry their own weight, maybe for the first time. Later that week, a letter arrived, the envelope addressed in neat, careful cursive I hadn't seen since I was a kid. It was from Mom. Inside was a single sentence: "You were right. I just didn't want you to be." No apology, no excuses, but it was enough. I folded the letter and placed it in an old shoebox with a few other keepsakes, an old photo, a birthday card from Grandma, the receipt for the back taxes I'd paid to save the house. I didn't cry or smile. I just closed the lid and placed the box back on the shelf. The months passed, the seasons shifted. I heard updates from Grandma or someone at church. Teresa had taken a second job. Dad fixed the cafe's leaking pipes. Mom started baking again. I didn't feel much about it, just a small sense of steadiness, like the ground beneath me had finally stopped trembling. One Thursday afternoon, I walked past our old house. It had a fresh coat of paint, bright and welcoming. Flowers bloomed in the garden, and a red tricycle sat in the driveway, well used and loved. I didn't stop or slow down. This wasn't a story about going back or getting even. It wasn't about hearing "I'm sorry" 100 different ways. It was about walking away before I lost myself completely, about choosing to leave while I still could, and making sure no one ever made me feel invisible again. I kept walking, the sound of my footsteps steady against the pavement, each one carrying me further into a life that was finally, truly mine. Please feel free to comment below if you liked this. Remember to like and subscribers for more.